no sound. There we go. Now it makes sense. Now we are live filming. Okay. Hi, this is Billie, co-founder of tollenroll.com, co-founder with John Bloom, and our third amigo is Tom Kibler. We started Toll and Roll last March 7th, 2025, but that wasn't the beginning of the journey. The journey started decades ago with many victims, many advocates, many whistleblowers. Myself, I led 2 whistleblower teams. I'm also a registered whistleblower for financial crimes in Australia and the United States. So we have a team that is full of vim and vigor, but full of energy, full of knowledge. And that knowledge crosses lanes. And what that means is our convoy for Toll and Roll is about CPS, Child Protective Services, APS, Adult Protective Services, guardianship, conservatorship, deed fraud, human trafficking. And when I say human trafficking can also be done on paper, and child trafficking around the world. We believe that the SA going on around the world, your satanic rituals, are a huge part of the foundation of why we have the problems we have in this country. We know all of our financial crimes tie into trafficked children. It's a fact, Jack. And today I'm going to introduce someone to you who I believe has a lane that is so important for all of us. And this lane she has traveled for a very long time, not just 1 decade, not just 2 decades, but 3 decades. This woman has been traveling. So this is Wise Through the Years, CPS with Tiffini Wise. So Tiffany, I'd like to just introduce yourself, and then we're going to get started with some questions. And you know what? Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being a warrior over the years and not being a newbie on the hamster wheel, but being someone we can look to for true direction, experience. That's the main thing. It's not as much advice, because people take that term and get all legal with it. This is your experience we're looking into. So go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So my name is Tiffini Wise. My crusade started in the very early 90s when they TPR'd me for one of 3 of my children. Excuse me.
Explain what TPR is for those listening.
Oh, a TPR is termination of parental rights. So the state had their claws in one of my children. I fought and fought and fought. And then I was pregnant with my 4th child. And they said, okay, so you can raise the oldest, the youngest, and your new baby. But we have to TPR you on this one because the calculations of your income and 3 kids, 4 kids, it doesn't equate. So
they were telling you you couldn't afford your 4 children, so they're taking 1. So they can sell your child, basically.
Correct. So at the time, you know, when you're pregnant, your hormones are everywhere, your emotions are everywhere. So I'm in the middle of a TPR. I'm in the middle of fighting for my other 2 to get them away from my ex-husband, who actually put them in foster care because I went to prison. And I said, look, you only have to keep them for 1 year. Well, he couldn't do that. So he surrendered my children. And let me tell you, it was probably a good thing that I was already in prison and all the way up in Connecticut, because I probably would have killed him. Okay.
And you know, when you say that, I'm going to tell people listening, if you have not been through the trauma of any of this type of behavior against you, you know, it's easy to judge people until you're in their shoes. And when you have dealt, and this is your child, I want all of you to hear Tiffany through your own vision of closing your eyes and imagine, oh, it makes me cry to even think about, imagine your baby, your child being given to a stranger because someone you trusted once in your life who betrayed you, gave those children to someone else. Think about that when you're hearing what Tiffany is saying right now, because she's being raw, she's being real. And get real, people. If someone steals your child, you are not, if you're going to sit there on the sidelines quietly, you're not a parent. Parents don't do that. I don't know about you, but I've been watching those two eagles up in the eagle's nest in Big Bear on the live cam. And I think, oh my God, they're protecting those eggs with their talons. What you just heard was the same thing. It's just eagles can't speak, but they have talons. Tiffany's talons just came out. Go ahead, Tiffany, keep going.
Yeah. So after they TPR'd me, I said, and I was still pregnant. I said that this cannot be really happening, right? Like, I can't let this happen to another family. This is not right. Something is not right. So they came to me and was like, well, if you sign custody over to dad, who was the one that turned them in, surrendered them, we will close the case. So let me start a little bit before we go any further. My father is a retired police officer, so he taught me and my sister, of course, I'm the only one that really picked it up, the Constitution. And I had lawyers in my family, paralegals, doctors, nurses, and police. So I went instantly to, well, if I get the system out of my way, I can get my kids back from him. I said, oh, you just want me to sign right here to give him custody? Yep. And then we're going to close the case. I signed it. A month later, I filed for sole full custody. Okay, now I've already had my baby. And I got my kids back. Right? The two.
Okay,
Plus
so
I just had one.
He obviously did not want to raise children.
No.
And was he in the process at any point in giving them up again?
Well, here's what really happened. I contacted the White House and I contacted my congressmen and my senators. And they all said that they would write a letter on my behalf. Okay. And that they wanted drug testing, hair and urine samples from both of us. Well, once he realized that he had to do that, he didn't want to fight me anymore because he was going to come up dirty. So we had an agreement that we wouldn't pay. He didn't have to pay me child support. I didn't have to pay him because we split him up. My son wanted to live with me. My daughter wanted to stay with him. And I said,
how old were they at this time? How old were they at that time?
My son was 9, so she was 11 at the time.
So she was getting older. She was getting older.
My friends are here. So I said, okay, this is the deal. So I went to my attorney and I said, this is what I need written up. That I have sole full custody of my son, financially, medically, everything, and him with her. But the twist with him was if he ever moved out of his sister's house, custody automatically transfers back to me. So long story short, as people were coming to me, right? Because so when I started, there was no internet. Okay. We had to go to the law library and hope that these people would help. So in the meantime, I had friends that weren't so much dealing with quote unquote CPS. They were dealing with family court. And I'm like, well, I had to learn, right? Because they drug me through this. So if you're not learning as they're dragging you through this hell, then you need not be in this movement, because you can't go through all of this and not learn anything. So I learned a couple things. I learned that CPS had a pattern. I learned that the first one to the courthouse wins. And I learned what attorneys where I lived were involved somehow with these people and these judges, and who was not playing the politic roles. And I would go to court. They don't always let you in, but they don't always close juvenile domestic court either. So I started helping people, like men and women,
Because you
Um,
knew this. See, this is important, and this is problem solving 101. Some people cannot problem solve. They just can't do it. You started out, you've been raised to problem solve, and you've already given a foundation here. You've been surrounded by business people, professionals. They see things, especially the men in the professionals, they will say, well, because men want to fix things, right? So I'm sure your dad, your uncles, whoever were the attorneys, gave their 2 cents, because I have yet to meet an attorney that doesn't want to give their $2 worth, or an officer in law enforcement that, if you ask, will not at least offer the thoughts of how things should happen. I want to backtrack just a little bit. What was some advice your dad gave you?
well, the first advice my dad told me was just shut up and sit down, okay? Because you're going to make yourself a target and they're going to come after you full force. But I'm just like him, right? He can't just sit down and be quiet. So, no, that did not work for me. But he said, if you're going to take on a system, you first have to understand the Constitution, okay? Because all these quote unquote laws that they have, they cannot contradict the state or the federal Constitution. So then I really, really, really started getting into the Constitution, right? And I started using it. And I never send a parent in a courtroom if I have not done it already, right? Because I don't want a parent to go to jail because I gave them wrong information. That would absolutely be the worst thing for me. So you have to be prepared. So when I tell them they have to go in and say, you're in violation of my rights, and I say, well, you can't just say that. You have to lay out the foundation, right? Like, you're in violation of my First Amendment right to free association, your Fourth Amendment right to privacy, meaning, you know, my person, place, my house, everything. You also have a Fifth Amendment right to shut up, right? They can't make you cooperate. And then the Sixth Amendment. And then people will be like, oh, well, that's for criminal. It doesn't matter. The Constitution is very clear, right? And people will try to argue me down about the Seventh Amendment. We have the right to a jury trial. Are you telling me that a child's life is not worth more than $20? Really?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, we know they know how much a child's life worth on the other side. Because a child is worth millions of dollars in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So quick question, because what we find is we have a lot of people who, I call them the hamster wheel. Every few years, we have new people who enter the scene. Not everybody can stay on it, like you, like me, like John, Tom. A lot of times people just get to the point where they literally say, I can't do this, after 5 years, after 10 years. So they just kind of take a backseat. And then in their place comes someone else who is all new. It's like the new kid on the block, it's like the new kid at school gets all the attention. Remember, though, the new kids on the block might be new because they had to leave where they were for specific reasons. And all of a sudden, they now find something where they can shine again. With that said, I know that's kind of cryptic, but what I'm trying to say is that you have a lot of people who have personal intent, and they end up on this hamster wheel explaining to other people about Constitution, about how to stand and how to argue. That's why you're on here, Tiffany, because I want you to tell people why, and you've just told them Constitution is your foundation, as it should be. But you've also made a statement that was very keen. You can also get in a lot of trouble using the Constitution if you don't know how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And explain a little bit deeper about how proper the uses it. And also, I want people to know, these giving people help does not guarantee anything. We cannot guarantee you are going to have, whoops, I don't know
That's
what
okay.
happened there. We cannot guarantee that you're going to get your child back, your parent back, your home back. We can guarantee, and I know Tiffany enough now over the last year. I met her through Darren on Tiff and the Punisher because you guys had us on right away. But I know you enough to know that you will give your best to whoever you're helping.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes your talents to
Yeah.
anybody who comes against those you're helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also heard you retract when you say, I shouldn't have done it that way. I should have done it this way. So I'm laying a disclaimer here for anybody listening. There are no guarantees.
Mm-mm.
There's none. So if anybody tells you, I guarantee you do this and you're going to get your kid back. I've heard, we've got people who've been in this a long time. You had someone on recently, a very bragger, a lot of bragging going on about how I win all the time. And you have to be very careful when you hear people say that, because all of a sudden it's no longer about your case. It's about the case of them proving themselves. And
Correct.
so Tiffany doesn't do this. This is
Mm-mm.
why I really am endeared to having her here. She's giving you her professional opinion based on her experience, not her guarantees of anything, but that she will give her best and give you the best information she has learned over the last 3 decades of not only going through it, but winning it. When you ask someone for their thoughts, I was taught by a man who currently is sitting in prison because they won't let him out. They hogtied him into prison, and he's been there since 2015 again.
Mm.
But he told me, he said, make sure that whoever you ask has won something or has actually done something that helps not just others, but did they help themselves? So what you've just heard from Tiffany is, yes, she helped herself. She
Mm-hmm.
problem solved. She thought, well, and this is the key to all of this, is reverse engineering everything. Go ahead, Tiffany.
So, ooh, that's a lot. So, let me first start by saying it is our responsibility in the United States of America to understand the Constitution. Not just the Constitution, but the Bill of Rights. Because the Bill of Rights, actually, I learned this a couple of years ago, is actually a restraining order against the government. And in the Bill of Rights is your first 10 rights. So I went into a room one day, maybe 5 people in there. I said, hey, does anybody know what your rights are? And I looked like a dumbass because nobody knew what I was even talking about. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So I said, look, the first thing we need to do is read the Constitution, right? You don't have to read about the presidency and the senators and all that. But what you do need to understand, and you do need to read, is the first 10 and the 14th Amendments, because that's really what protects you. And you're right. I've had judges tell my parents the Constitution doesn't apply in my courtroom. That'd be wrong. The Constitution applies in everyday life, inside and outside. I've also had parents come back and tell me, because I've given them Supreme Court cases to use, the Supreme Court does not rule my courtroom. That's not totally true either, because the Supreme Court of the United States sets the precedents for all the courts. So when they're telling you this, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because there's 3 judges here that will not hear a case with my name on it. The first judge tried to take away my free will by telling me, you will cooperate with CPS. I said, no, I'm not. Yes, you are, Miss Wise. I said, no, I'm not. She said, Miss Wise, I am court ordering you to cooperate with CPS. And this is exactly what I said to her. Okay, you'll see. Well, CPS went to one of these meetings with my daughter, and she said, well, I'm coming to do a home visit. I said, where? She said, you're home. I said, no, you're not. You're not violating my 4th Amendment rights. You're not violating my husband's or my stepson's. No, you're not. Well, I'm going to tell the judge. I said, were you not sitting in the courtroom when I told her 3 times I was not going to cooperate? So we go back to court, and the CPS lady stood up, and she's like, Miss Wise didn't cooperate. At this point, I'm so mad that I'm crying, right? Because that's a release for me. And if I don't cry, I'm going to destroy something. So I started crying and I said, I told you I was not going to cooperate with CPS. And my daughter's lawyer was like, Mom thinks it's an infringement. And I said, no, it is an infringement. I said, and if you continue, I'm going to leave your courtroom and go call a civil rights attorney. I swear to God, everybody in that courtroom thought I was going to jail. She threw her hand up and said, I'm going to give you what you want, Miss Wise. Case dismissed. I was pissed. You're not going to take away my free will to make decisions for my life. No, I don't care who you are. But I stood on that, and she knew what I was saying. And my husband was like, it's not what you said. It really was. He said it was your demeanor. Like, oh, yeah, this one right here, this one knows what she's doing. I better not play too much with her. The second one, it was over child support. They took money out of my account because my husband was a signer. And me and child support went round and round. I said, I'm not bending, I'm not breaking, I'm not conceding, and I don't consent. So I took him to court. I told the judge, you violated my 14th Amendment right and my 5th Amendment right to due process of law before you stole my property. He's going to roll his eyes and say, thank you, Miss Wise, for teaching me the law. So now in my head, I'm like, oh, you think I'm kidding? Okay. So I said, you need to look up United States versus Sage. I said, that case from the Supreme Court says child support is nothing different than a car note or a school loan. Miss Wise, the United States Supreme Court does not rule the courtroom. I said, that's not necessarily true. So he was so mad. He had my paperwork. I swear to God, he said, I'm dismissing this whole case. So I leaned up and put my hands on the table and I smiled at him and I said, that's great. That's what I needed you to do. And I jumped up and I told child support, I'll see you in federal court. Now he's got my papers and I'm walking out of the courtroom. Now he's got my papers. Miss Wise, come back here. We're not done. We're not done.
Oh, he dismissed the case already.
Right. So I sit back down and he's talking to me. And they're over there calculating how much money they got to give me back now, right? Because they know they've lost. So I say to him, you really shouldn't play with somebody who's certified to teach the Constitution, especially when they live in this area. I said, you really shouldn't be playing with somebody who is changing laws in this state, and child support is next. And then I left him with the article that I was in for one of the papers online that's clearly states, and I'll send it to you. And my first words to this reporter was, the system sets parents up to fail. He gave me my money and now he won't hear a case with my name on it. Because I'm not playing with these people. They work for us. And that's what people don't understand, right? I'm like, why are we paying these people to steal our kids?
See, Tiffany, the difference is that those who think they do know don't know how to stand on that foundation. So we have a lot of people teaching people what you just said, but those same people are not winning as you have. And this is a key for anybody listening to this. I want you to know, you can say, man, if I talk like that to the judge, I'd be in jail. Well, a lot of people have been, but not because they spoke like that, because they spoke the wrong words like that. And I know many people who've gone to jail who have spoke the right words, but they weren't in the right place to do it. And what I mean by that is they had already done so many wrong things leading up to that, that there was a precedence already in place for an intent to arrest them. And I want you to hear that again. And Tiffany, you know what I mean. You have a lot of people who go out and they help people. They're not winning. These people aren't winning. They're losing, right? They're not getting their kids back. They're not getting their home back. They may delay things, But in those delays, mistakes have been made.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those mistakes now to a court, and I want to discuss this with you because I think this is key to this myself. This is just my opinion, is because of the way the country has changed since 9/11 with the Patriot Act and with domestic, if I can say it, I don't know, terrorism, but they tend to, they being the courts, they being the law enforcement, now have like a checklist of
Mm-hmm.
what, if you do, they can now use that checklist as, see, this is a foundation that this person is against our government, is against our laws, is against, they call them sovereign citizens, things like that. Well, because the FBI deemed that sovereign citizens are domestic terrorists. So what happens is if you allow them to put you in a box by making mistakes that align you with the ability for that terminology to be used on you, I don't care how you speak in the courtroom, you're not going to win like this. Now, Tiffany is speaking in a way that she started. This was her
Mm-hmm.
foundation. She didn't waver from the foundation of this. She did not do, she's already been in prison, right? The woman doesn't want to go back. She's not going to be stupid and do things to send her ass back to prison, excuse my expression, but geez, Louise of people, you hear the dumbest things. She started the foundation firmly. This is
Mm-hmm.
key to anything you're doing. Firm foundation. So again, a lot of people out there are hearing Tiffany going, I said that. I said, but what did you start with? When did you
Right.
start? Go ahead, Tiffany, take over.
And here's the thing. The hardest pill for me to swallow, I swear to God, and still for me to swallow, is that people don't have a lot of the strength that I have, right? I've been to prison, and every time I go to court, I kid you not, I take somebody with me because my mouth can get real reckless in there when you're trying to violate my rights. I'm not having it. And even though you cannot go to jail for inserting your rights, they can always hit me with contempt or whatever. It doesn't matter because I do get reckless sometimes. But I tell you what, that judge will never hear my name. My name comes up, they're not hearing my case because they already know that I'm not playing.
Right. And you have a
You're right.
foundation of knowledge.
Correct. And here's the thing. But people that come new to the scene, some of them really do drive me crazy. Like, I've gotten kids out of foster care. They've gone in on Friday, been back in kinship placement by Monday, the following week been in sole full custody of a relative. Okay? I mean, I make
And
it
listen,
happen.
and I want to stop. This is not hyperbole. This is a woman who has, as they call it now, all fancy pantsy, the receipts to back up everything she's saying. This is why I'm speaking to Tiffany today. She not only speaks it, she does it, she proves it, she brings children home. This is key to anyone listening. Do not follow people who have not won. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I
No,
just,
you're fine.
yeah, well, and I can say even in toll and roll, I lost everything I own. Tom lost everything he owns. John lost everything he owns. When I say don't follow people who haven't won, there's a difference. What we
Right.
learned and what we won was knowledge that no matter how well we fought our case, we couldn't win. Because how we were to win would set precedents for the entire country. And when you have a mechanism of financial crimes, again, this is my wheelhouse. The financial crimes are how all of this is laundered. If they shut down the financial crimes, it doesn't matter how right you are in front of them. You will have the spigot shut off. Now, we didn't lose our freedom because none of the three of us got stupid, right? We know that they can arrest you in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference with following people who have the experience and may not have won, but are winning over the advocacies, are winning over the congressional members. We have teams. Tiffany, behind the scenes, without knowing it, is a toll and roll. person because she's been fighting for 30 years. This is what we're in this for, is all the advocates, all the victims, all the whistleblowers. They're all covered. Tiffany is a toll enroller. Hey, I got to get you a Tiffany tolls and rolls. But she's a winning toll enroller.
Well, I don't win all the time.
No,
right?
you can't. You
Yeah,
can't.
you can't. And it's heartbreaking, right? I don't ask parents for money. I've never asked anybody for anything because for me, getting kids back to family, whether it's with their parents or kinship or just out of the system, period, means more to me than anybody giving me $1 billion, right? Because money runs out. But the looks on people's faces and how much gratitude and everything they give to you, that is instilled in my brain and in my heart. That's what means the most to me. And it always has. I mean, people, because, I have blonde moments. They're like, hey, what's your address? So I'm just like, da 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 da. And then I get stuff in the mail, right? And I appreciate all that, but I'm like.
Okay, so I want you to hear, let's back this up because many of us are the same way. We don't charge for any of our help. But it's nice to get a gift if a gift comes through. And that gift that is the way people say thank you. And it doesn't mean sometimes I actually had, it's almost been 15 years ago now. I went and picked up my mail. Sorry, I get all teary-eyed. I swear I'm the worst. But
Okay.
I picked it up and it was this beautiful necklace that I still have today that was handmade, and it was resin, not resin, it was a natural material, but it took rare stones that the woman had collected. She said, I prayed about you and I collected these stones, and she created a heart stone necklace with copper and with metals and with rope that is healing. And she put a little water inside so you could see a water droplet. That was huge to me because it was a thank you that I still have today. That's a heart. Like you said, it's not helping people is such a reciprocation. When people lose and want to get mad about losing for someone who's done everything they can to help them, I don't still understand that. That still perplexes me because how can you be mad at someone? You lost. It's not their fault you lost, but you didn't get what you wanted. In hindsight, having someone help you, whether you win or lose, that's a gift. Helping is a gift. The outcome is not always what we think it should be. But how many times, Tiffany, have you had, and I'm curious about this. This is a question I wanted to ask you. How many times have you had something happen where maybe you lost the case, but 6 months or a year later, all of a sudden, because of that loss, it actually helped? Does that make sense?
I think for me, those are they're far and in between because when you lose, first of all, you're devastated, right? And then you're mad. And I can speak from my own experience. And you're like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done? Da, 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 da. But then I had to come to terms with this. Everything happens for a reason, whether we know the reason or not at that point in time. And God is never going to put too much on our shoulders that we can't handle, right? So for me, I don't know, because I live by that. And I live by karma's got everybody's address. And if you're out here messing up people's lives and you're not doing the right thing, it comes back in tenfold.
I agree.
So I don't know.
Okay, so let's finish this out now because I've gotten from you what I wanted.
Okay.
I got your raw, this is what I do, this is how I do it. Talons come out. I believe in the talons. I'm a big talon person because every mama in the animal kingdom, think about their protection. They have either talons, big teeth, right? Carnivorous teeth, carnivore, however you say the word, or a stamina, because you can have a tiny little 5-foot woman still have the stamina that includes talons without the talons showing. And that doesn't mean rudeness. It doesn't mean threats. Oh, well, let's say this. It doesn't mean veiled threats. This
Right.
means when you are directly saying, we know, Judge, what you're doing is unlawful. And I had this conversation with John Bloom yesterday about intentional and what was the word? I can't remember, but that judges are, it's meaning that they have the duty to follow law,
Mm-hmm.
right? Except he was putting that in his intentionally follow law. Except I said, I want you to think about that because statutes and codes aren't law. So if you're saying that you agree that they have the ability to interpret law, right, and make a choice based on their opinions, that's not true. They can, but you are not agreeing to that. And we went around and around, and I'll find the terms and I'll put them down in the chat when I find them, because it was a sentence that he used. And I said, no, you don't want to use that, because you do not want to say, oh, it's okay for you to interpret law, because their statutes and codes are not law. They're there to support law. But
Mm-hmm.
if the law is contrary to the Constitution and you're telling them they can make that decision, it's okay to violate the Constitution, that's your fault. You then are that person in court giving them the authority to violate you.
Right.
We should not be giving anyone the authority to violate us. I call it forced commercial intercourse. I'm not allowing you to rape me. If you're going to rape me, I'm not doing it by consent. That's why it's called rape. Even commercial intercourse is a lawful term. And I put that in all my documents that I'm being, that I am being raped by the system. And VC, that was another thing that came up, that French term for under duress.
Mm-hmm.
We're all under duress when we have things going against us. I'd like you to do just like a short 2-minute dissertation about how you handle under duress and how it ties into the Constitution for you, or any thoughts you have on under duress, statutes and codes, and how the judges, although they opine, how that's still in violation of law when it's contrary to the Constitution.
Ooh. Okay. So I'm just going to use my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
CPS was called on her because she went to the hospital with one of my grandsons because she thought he ate some CBD, not Delta 8, just regular CBD. Well, I came back because she called me. This woman, this is coercion and threats and intimidation and all that shit mixed together. Told my daughter in front of me after I told her who I was and what I was doing there. Well, if you don't sign the safety plan, we're taking the baby into custody. I said, whoa. You're not taking anybody anywhere. I said, aren't those voluntary? Well, yes. Okay. She said, who are you again? I said, well, I told you, I'm an advocate and I'm her mother and his grandmother. Why are you here? Well, we got a report. I said, I don't care what you got. So anyway, she left the hospital room. She was mad. So if you go back to my very first videos, you will see me, 5'4", 155 pounds, marching 12 police officers and a CPS worker off my property with the Constitution. Absolutely not. I don't intimidate easily. Okay. Like the only man that intimidates me is my father. Okay. The only man. So people have to learn the real stuff, right? Because coercion, threats, and intimidation are federal crimes. Don't let people push you around. They're like bullies. How do you beat a bully? You stand up to a bully, right?
Mm-hmm.
And judges, now, no, don't anybody do this unless you know you're experienced enough. If a judge, I told you, I just told a judge I was not going to participate in her unlawful taking of my free will. No, right? She knew what I was saying to her. She is still bound by the state and the federal constitution from the highest to the lowest. Is it economy versus, hold on. There's two Supreme Court cases where the Supreme Court has told the judges, from the top judges to the administrative judges, you are under oath and you must follow the Constitution. And the saying, I learned this from another advocate, goes, the butts, B-U-T-Z, stops here, Mr. Lee. And that's the butts versus economy. And I think it's Lee versus the United States.
And you can put that down in, once this is live, you can put it down in the, well, I think it's live now, but you can put it down in the comments too for people.
Now, I'll send it to you because I don't know how to work all this. I'm not technical enough, okay? And if you use that phrase, like I said, don't do it if you're not experienced enough, because I don't want you to mess it up, right? Because a lot of people get in court and it's intimidating with all these people. Just remember, people, this is what I tell my parents. You're paying for them. They should fear you, not you fear them. No, it should be the other way around. In this country,
let me problem solve with you here. This is something I learned a long time ago, because you've met me, you know I like to talk.
Yeah.
And I can talk forever. I call it, and my girlfriend years ago, it was about 2017, she goes, do you know what you said in that courtroom? I said, what? She said, you were a monkey with a loaded gun. I said that, didn't I? And she said, yeah, that's not probably the right terminology. So I got really good advice after that. I literally did. I said, he looked at me and he says, you know, you need an attorney. And I looked at him, I said, find me one. I can't find an honest one. And I said, no, I know. I'm just a monkey with a loaded gun in this court when it comes to law. That's not what you want to say. So what I learned was you write it down.
Mm-hmm.
You prepare a statement. You have it notarized. Now, this is what I learned. This is what I tell people. So you don't become that monkey with a loaded gun in the court and just start spouting all the wrong stuff. Put it on paper. Say what you want to say and stand on that. Also, what I was told is before you go into court, make sure it's filed and make sure you serve it. So you give everybody a copy of it and you give it to the court clerk before your hearing. So everybody has a copy. So when I went in, and this is personal experience, so I know this works. I was in court and I had my prepared statement because, again, I'll wander. If you know me, you go, of course she was. Can't stand talking to the woman. She never goes the same direction. She segues like I'm doing now. So I stood up and I read a one-pager. And that still to this day is online because I ended up reading it for William Wagner live out front of the courtroom. And when I hear it, I'm like, wow, I did good. Well, because I followed the words. I read the words. I didn't segue. I didn't squirrel. Oh, peanuts. Because you will naturally freeze in front of a judge. You will naturally freeze, most people, because you're already under enough fight or flight stress. You're looking for anything you can grasp to help you. So
that's a good idea. I never thought about that.
Well, that's the man who's sitting in prison. He and the other woman who went to prison, because she literally wouldn't speak. And the judge got mad at her and she wouldn't say what he wanted her to say. So he held her under contempt. And 2 years later, she finally got it. They threw her into the loony bin because what's another thing they do, Tiffany? They 5150.
They're unstable, mentally ill.
5150.
Yeah.
And so she ended up, very dear friend of mine, she ended up in, we would speak almost weekly. At certain times I wouldn't hear from her. I knew something wasn't right. And they would put her in, they would actually bring actors in who were staged to come in to act crazy. They would literally, this sounds horrible, but this is not even as bad as it gets. This is the story I share because it's terrible, but they would literally poop on the floor in her room, pick it up, with their hands and smear it on walls and act crazy. These were not crazy people. This is theater in order to control and to manipulate. She had women die in her arms in that ward. She came out, and this is why I try to explain to people why I'm interviewing you, is because this country and court system right now, if you are not a Tiffini Wise, if you are not wise to the law, if you are not truly wise to the Constitution, or wise to those who are in prison, who are wise but made foundational mistakes that allowed them to be grabbed, you should not be standing in a courtroom talking.
Mm-mm.
You should have, if you're supposed to talk, because most people can't afford an attorney, and your public defenders are public pretenders, they're learning. That is a true statement. They are learning. So give us some of your thoughts now, and based on what I said about public pretenders and learners, writing your statements down and standing on a foundation versus, and two, the other thing is, riddle me this because I may be wrong, but if we read our statement and a judge wants to ask us questions about that statement, my answer is usually, I've explained it as best I can in my own words. And since I do not speak your language, I would need an interpreter. And I had the judge look at me at one point and said, well, what language would I be interpreting? And I said, law. I don't speak legalese. I need an interpreter. And he looked at me like I had three heads, but he understood.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you don't always have to be right to be on track. But when you're wrong in that courtroom, you are on track to jail or everything
Mm-hmm.
you own being taken. Go ahead, Tiff, and let's close this out.
Okay. So what was the first question again? Because I got
It's about
sidetracked with that.
I know. It's about having the foundation written down.
Okay.
It's about how the violations, and then when the judge wants you to answer questions, if you don't know the answer, how to respond.
Okay. Well, I like your response, right? I need an interpreter because I don't speak your language, right? Because if you get a law dictionary, what we're talking, like if we're talking right now, a lawyer could be sitting here or a judge, not us knowing, and we're talking, they know in legal terms what we're talking about. We're just having a general conversation. So yeah, you do have to learn the language. And oh God, lawyers.
Sorry if there's anyone that thinks you're a good lawyer out there, but I am telling you, I have yet to find someone who practices law that isn't just good at BSing, arguing, and winning a fight the dirtiest way they can.
Well, I got one, and I love him. And I've sent him 37 people here in Virginia. And
Nice.
he's rocking these courtrooms, okay? Because he travels all through Virginia, and he's
Nice.
strictly CPS. I love him. But the rest of them, I really don't trust lawyers, because my own uncle, which you had it right without even knowing, was a lawyer. And he said, we're paid liars. That's what he said to me.
He who makes up the best story wins.
Correct. And that's something else he said too, especially in jury trials. Whoever has the best story will win. Sort of like whoever gets to the courthouse first will win. Okay, y'all need to read between the lines because I can't say it any clearer than that. And you had to remember that the attorneys too take an oath, and they're all mandated reporters. They all work for the courts. So who's their first client? Honestly, it's not you. No, they're not really the ones that want to make a difference. Have been shunned, disbarred, called liars, right? So I'm
So
going to
what
tell people this.
so that is the key right here. You just heard you've got a woman who's worked 30 years doing this. Started with her own case. She has one man she refers. That's one more than anyone I have. And I've been at it 18 years. So maybe I've got another 12, Tiff, and I'll find that one that we, because I have recommended people before because we thought they were good. And it wasn't that they didn't show intent to be good, but because of what you just said, they don't want to lose their bar card. Now, with that, I'm going to bring in toll and roll because this is why toll and roll exists. Because all of this comes down to counterfeit, forged, and perjured documents. Perjury is the theater. Perjury is the woman who is innocent as can be, who is the sweetest mother, but she married a man who maybe is not that kind of man she thought he was. And he doesn't have talons. He has guns, he has swords in the name of badges and friends with black robes.
Mm-hmm.
And my girlfriend that I was telling you about, her husband had many friends in black robes, and paperwork would show up with some of the craziest things written about her in perjury. Toll and roll is about the counterfeit, forged, and perjured documents. It is that simple. In this country, if you can stand in front of a court and have a judge tell you what you just heard today was that the Supreme Court doesn't matter, Constitution doesn't matter, it matters. How you use it matters. The terminology you use with it matters. The courtroom is not for, in my belief, 99.99% of your victims.
Mm-mm.
They don't ever know. And the language thing, this was something I did learn, Tiffany, very early. We do not speak legalese, and it was an intentional language barrier. So with toll and roll, the simplicity is we are demanding audits of all the land and court records, agency records. We brought the petition of remonstrance over 6 years, 7 now, across all 50 states. That is your petition of grievances. You have a right to bring your grievances forward to and the legislative branch is who you bring your grievances to. Well, we did that. 40 states ratified. That means 40 states have representatives, which is more than a quorum, more than 50%. And the first time in 250 years that a document like this has been created. And the simple thing is counterfeit, forged, and perjured documents void everything. Everything against you. Now, people will say, well, that would mean that even those who are in jail and did commit a crime, well, yeah, I'm sorry if your rights are violated. Even if you are guilty, we got a problem, Henry, right? And so toll and roll wants all the records audited. We're in 60 plus. We have a few more, Tiff. Now we've had Darla and Tom. Tom's our scheduler, and he and Darla Gula have been working really hard together, calling more offices. We have not been kicked out of one office.
Good.
As a matter of fact, they can't kick us out because we come forward as friends of everything constitutional, of everything with this corporate structure, because we come forward as the friend, as the creditor relieving the debtor of their debt. And when you come forward, again, that is even in the courtroom. What Tiffany just told you, when you come forward, you are, we're going to call it the creditor because it's all about money. You lead in that. You are the creditor. You are the energy. You being on that paper, that wedding signature, everything they take from your fingerprints to your blood to your autograph is worth money. You are giving them funds.
Yeah.
Talk about that, and then we will close out because that is a huge part of the courts.
Yeah, and let's talk about the fraud for a minute. How many people have had false reports? CPS runs off of it. The courts, I'm not even going to call them courts because they're not. This administrative hearing judge says, okay, so Tiffini Wise was slinging dope out her front door. So we're going to take the kids into custody. Okay, so the only thing slinging out my front door is auto detailing and window tint, right? But there's the fraud because they switched everything around. So now there's a case number. The judges are getting paid. The police are getting paid. The CPS workers, hell, the state's getting paid, right? All off fraud, because fraud is fraud. I don't care if it's in real estate, I don't care where it's at. It's fraud. The good thing about fraud is that you have a lifetime to bring a claim against the government or whoever, because there's no statute of limitations on fraud. All you got to do is prove it.
And it's tolling. The damages are tolling, hence toll and roll.
Right. And that's why I love toll and roll. Anytime I see you post stuff, I don't know if you know this, but I post it, right? I do. Just like with Osiris, when I see him posting stuff about child support, he's a legend and he's been doing this for 40 years. I post it because I trust these people, right? And that's something else I wanted to say. Be very careful who you trust. I have never, ever, in fact, when I help parents, I don't want to see your paperwork because I know 99% of the time CPS has already lied. I just want a bare minimum of what's going on so I can figure out a strategy to get your kids out of foster care, right? I don't care about your paperwork. No.
So let's preface this, because this is an important key. Leave the emotion out. This is a business transaction. Your child is a product. Your child is chattel. This is a business transaction with the court. They don't care how you feel. They don't care who's getting hurt. It all is a business transaction. So that's key for people to know. Take emotion out. Tell us the business. Tell us ABC, what happened. Don't tell us that, oh, they hurt my feelings because he said this, or my ex-husband said. I don't care what your ex-husband said. What did he do that caused the damage? Not emotion.
If you go to the ABA website and type in NTPRs, they do
ABA is the ABA. Explain what that is.
Oh, the American Bar Association. Mm-hmm. They are working on ending TPRs in this country. I go to all their webinars.
TPR is, for those listening,
termination of parental rights. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
And the most interesting one that I've seen is called Incentive to Separate. They even break down how much money these people get and the 3 or 4 categories that they categorize your children in.
Give an example.
Like a child with autism. Okay. Now I can't remember the exact number, so don't quote me. Just go watch the video. Brings in like $4,000 a month through the state.
And that's just one part of it.
That's just one child with autism. And then it's like intellectually
challenged. Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw this, I literally wanted to puke.
Well, and I know even I'll call them illegal immigrants. Children here illegally. Now, people don't like to hear that because, oh, no child's illegal. Well, you can't go to another country and leave your child and think somebody's going to take care of them. They don't get paid to take care of them. They get very bad things happen to them. But here in this country, it's a business.
Mm-hmm. It is a business.
And you know what I really liked? You posted a while back the breakdown of, I think it was 83% of children taken by CPS are taken in error.
Yeah. And I'll tell you where I got that. I'll send you all the places that I get my, it's from the NCC, National Child Protective Reform. They even have the pie, right? And it shows you abuse and neglect. 1% of children die at the hands of their own parents. When a child enters foster care, they are 400 to 600 more times likely to be murdered, sexually abused, abused, neglected. It's terrible. But they think the system isn't broken. What part of that don't they understand?
Everything about this system is broken, and it all comes down to counterfeit, forged, perjured documents, playing a gambling game with our lives. And foster care, the other thing, and it's starting to come out now, and I researched this many, many years ago. These foster children in this system, there's a lot of things people don't know that can happen to these children by law, not constitutionally grounded, but by the law and by the procedures. Now I just saw it came out about how these children and the transgender, they were used, foster children were the large majority of the transgender surgeries done on children. And that is because the foster system, they do not have to ask permission of anyone to mutilate those children for medical research. That's a fact. And this is something that sickens me, but this is part of why I'm talking to Tiffany today, too. We have no skin that is not used on our body. And skin is your biggest organ, right? Your skin is your biggest organ.
Yeah.
That is not used. So when they say skin in the game, you literally need to know what that means. Your skin is in the game. Your child is your property. When back in the day, hundreds of years ago, everything was property. That's what our whole country was founded on, is property. That's why they came to America, get away from taxation. And oh boy, wasn't that a good job? But it's your property. And so we talk about at Toll and Roll the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 and how the governors, and it's funny when you said, when you ask about what's your job, how most people don't know. Well, when we've interviewed people running for governor, they couldn't answer what's your job as governor because we were shocked, but most people don't know. The job of the governor is to protect the property, you and your property, right? You and your property. Well, that includes your children, your land, your children, everything, your property. So what we have is a system that we know we've brought the remedy to fix. We have brought the remedy that says, stop, drop, and roll. Simple, send your crawlers in, audit the land, court, and agency records. Now we're seeing it being done. So this is, Rod always says, just because we don't hear does not mean they're not doing. The problem is even with all these audits going on across the country in CPS, and people are all excited, oh, they're auditing. Yeah, but they audit and walk away. These documents on the table, Tiffany, are truly worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. Hundreds of trillions. And that's not hyperbole either. And lifetimes in prison. Oh, yeah, they're out there auditing the hell out of this country. You got kids like Nick Shirley. Okay, he popped out of nowhere. When you actually listen to the history of him, you got to go, okay, so who put him in place? You're not telling me this kid went to a foreign country and met with cartel the same day he got there and was taken in, and he's as white as the boys come. Oh, this white boy with the white boy haircut is not being I lived in Mexico. I have friends who the town I lived in, two of the major cartels actually had their families in the hills. So there was like a place where you leave all the expats alone and everything. But if you just watched recently all the hell break loose, cartels do not like little old white boys. And Nick Shirley is, I mean, I'm telling you, it's a psyop, in my opinion. I'm watching him. The kid admits for 4 years after high school at 18, he went to Hollywood to spend with learning how to be an influencer with the man whose name I can't remember right now. He was in his 50s at the time, so he's mid 50s. Cocaine being done on ping pong tables, alcohol, sex, SA going on, all kinds of horrible things. And yet this kid is a virgin, doesn't do drugs, and hasn't drank. And he went to the foreign country and the cartel took him right in and he waltzed right through and talked to them. This to me slaps us in the face of not only perjury, but of the true crimes going on in this country. And why? Because of our children. It's
That
children.
people want fame too. If
Oh,
you think, I just want to speak on this real quick. If you think at any point in time that you're going to become famous or become a billionaire helping people, then you're in the wrong business, because this is not what it's about. It's about keeping kids safe, keeping kids home, keeping kids with family, and eliminate the interference from these government people. Okay, I'm not anti-government, and I had somebody say that to me one time, and I said, anti-government? Obviously, you don't know who the government is, because we are the government. Why would I be anti-government?
it's we the people. I love you. I'm thinking of,
Right.
we like each other. We like the government. And,
Yeah.
we now have a Supreme Court that, although the judges don't want to listen to, we've had a lot of good decisions come out. The Sheets decision back in April or May of 2024, I think it was, that came out. It was about property taxes and about how they can't just take it, but they're still doing it. They, being the courts, they being these fake servicers, are still taking the homes. Now, I'm going to end with this, and this is big for our children. Stolen homes are a conduit for the laundering of our stolen children, land, and lives. And when I say that, I want you to think about the fact that in 2016, before Trump came into his first administration, Obama laundered $500 billion worth of GSEs overseas. GSEs are tied directly to our stolen homes. So when we tell you that the lanes that we incorporate into toll and roll, CPS, APS, guardianship, conservatorship, deed fraud, human trafficking, child trafficking, they're all the same lane. They're all heading to, they're different lanes heading to the same journey
Right.
with the same beginning: counterfeit, forged, and perjured documents. And the end result is laundering hundreds of billions of dollars overseas. Now, it's more than that. But when I did the article, it was 500 billion at the time, back in whenever it was. And a friend of mine, Howard Graber at the time, said what you said, Tiffany, because we're all broke. I don't care who you are. If you're an advocate
You're
and
broke.
you're broke, unless you started with money, you're broke.
Mm-hmm.
And if you started with money and you're an advocate, it's probably been stolen from you. So you're
Mm-hmm.
broke. There's no other way to say it. You're broke. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so we all would like to think that this journey has meaning, and
Mm-hmm.
it does. Because Tiffany, you and I have come together for this morning to do this. It has meaning. And whoever is supposed to hear this message is going to hear it. It's going to be used. It's going to be heard by congressional members. It's going to be heard by state and federal employees. And it's definitely going to be heard by CPS, because where wise ones go, so go CPS ears. Because it's not always what you see, it's what you hear.
Mm-hmm.
What are they saying, and how are they walking? What are you now seeing? You hear it, then you see it. I learned as a little girl to watch the feet, because when you're little, that's what you see most of, right?
Right.
You're a little kid, you're 3 years old, you see feet. You learn to watch how people's feet move when they're lying to you, how people's feet move when they're going to hurt you. And I've seen
Wow.
attorneys dance in court.
I have to remember that one. I
Mhm.
watch their eyes.
Well, eyes are a tell, but I'll tell you what's even more of a tell. It's the body, how it twitches, how it moves, how they stand, where their feet are facing. A lot when you listen to, this is just my opinion based on my experience of trauma. When you watch a man's eyes, you see into his soul. But when you watch the sole of his shoes, you know how he walks.
I'm going to start doing that.
Mhm. And that's because I can remember being 3 years old and seeing the big old biker boots into a house where we walked in to pick up a woman I call my sister. I grew up with her, and she was with a mama who was not a good mama, and we would go on the weekends and pick her up. And she was just a little bit older than me. She's a year older than me or so. And I remember stepping up these steps. I was 3 or 4. And when I stepped up these steps, it was this house. It was an older shack. And there was like a couch right there as you walked into this utility room. And I could see knees and boots. And they were all the big biker boots because these were Hell's Angels guys. And I just remember they were all sitting with this woman. And there was maybe more than one woman. But I just remember being a little kid thinking, wow, that's odd. But boy, their shoes looked very menacing. And then as I walked into the house, what did I see? Everything, because kids don't look up other than at the people they're talking, but they see everything down here, and you're trying to avoid being, so ducking and dodging doesn't end as we get older. But people who have been through the trauma, and my cousin sister, I call her, we both say there's two things that can happen. You either become a predator or you learn how to stay away from them. And one of us 5 kids became a predator. He became a serial killer because of the trauma, because of the abuse. I was lucky I got to go home to my mama and daddy during the week for school. But every weekend I was around the trauma. You learn. And this is another thing, Tiffany, and I want to, we really will end with this. I'm sorry, because you and I could probably go on all day. But the trauma these children experience, now when you're an adult and you see the trauma, you can process it differently.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about a child's mind.
I do want to speak on that. And I can speak again from my own children's experience because my oldest daughter will be 37. Okay. When her dad surrendered her, well, all of them, the 2 that they gave back to him that I went and got, sexual abuse on my daughter, physical abuse on her, physical abuse on my son. And this goes back to what I do tell people. I truly believe the only reasons those 2 were not adopted is because when they were placed in care, they were literally abused by the system, and now they were damaged goods. Okay? Because children that really, truly are abused and neglected, they're not adoptable. So for them, even to this day, they still have PTSD. It never goes away. It gets easier to live with the older you get because you learn when you get older that you just can't control your whole environment, right? Even as an adult, we don't have a lot of control outside of our homes because anything could happen to us. But as a child, you're right. They do not understand how to process trauma. And people will say, oh, kids are so resilient. Well, actually, no, they're not. They're really not. What you have just done when you harm a child by pulling them from their parents and then they go through all this other stuff is you're building an adult, right? Who's going to be an adult to either be homeless, in prison, or dead. That's the God's honest truth. 85% of the people in prison has had some kind of contact with CPS, family court before, or juvenile domestic before the age of 18. So what we're really doing, not us, because we're trying to save this country, the people that are doing this harm, they're building the next generation so that they can keep their prisons open.
And that is going to be another show for Toll and Roll to bring forward about the prison system. Because remember, you never get over trauma. You just learn how to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiffany, thank you for Tiffini Wise. You've got, you and I between Wise and Powers, what 2 powerful last names you can have. And thank you for your time today. And you know what? If someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, Tiffini Wise, I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Tiff and the Punnisher. So you can reach us or Darren too.
Yeah, you're every day now. You guys do an everyday show currently. So
Every day but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because I got my little ones
yeah,
home.
so during the week, you and Darren have Tiff and the Punisher. I know
Hmm.
a lot of times because I'll tune in while I'm just popping around and listen to you guys and just say hi while I'm in the, wherever chat I'm in. But I know you're on YouTube, Facebook.
Facebook. I think we're on. I think we got kicked off TikTok again. But if you tune in, Darren can tell you because I'm not all this technical stuff to me.
Yeah,
I have a hard
I'll
enough
put it
time.
down in the chat. I'll put it in our
Okay,
description as well. But I want people to know that you're out there.
I am.
I'll make sure there's contact. Toll and Roll. Find us at tollandroll.com. Follow along, read the documents. And if you have someone out there right now who is experiencing any of these crimes against them, we also have an affidavit online that we tell people all you got to do is get it notarized or witnessed by two people, put your name on it, and we give the direction how it goes to Doge and how the copy will come to us to save it at tollandroll.com. And so reach out. If not, know that we can't help everybody individually. We can't. Toll and Roll does not help individual people because our goal is to help everybody. But we can do shows like this. We can interview people who do help individually and just know there's still, you're looking at one woman, Tiffany. There's only so much of her she can give. And so she has to be, and I don't mean selective in the way that one case is better than another, but I do mean that there are some times where people will call last minute. Oh, they're taking my child right now. They're at the door. Well, okay, that's a little late. If you can start when things start rumbling, when you
Yeah,
start hearing the rumble tumble, not
I'm the
when.
one, and
Mhm.
I tell people this. I'm the one you want between me and you and CPS because I'm the first. I'm the first because at that point I will automatically ask you one question. Do you want me to advocate for you? The minute you say yes, it's on from there. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I promise you the Constitution will be flying out of my mouth.
And this isn't legal advice, guys.
No.
This is called experience. This is called doing our best. And this is called wanting to help and to assist. So if you're going to ask someone for help, also know that you are not allowed to badger them back. You are not allowed because you don't get what you want to harm someone else. That is
Hmm.
not how this works. This is called reciprocation. Tiffany will give to you her best.
I will.
So let's just work together. Let's save this country one little inch at a time if we can. And just remember, those who advocate ask questions of what have they won? Who are they advocating for? And have they given anything of substance back? Meaning, are they on the right track? Yes, a lot of people are on the right track, but what is their track record? Okay.
Hmm.
You really need to listen to that. So, Tiffany, thank you for today. I'm going to give you a quick call when we hang up just to continue thanking you. But any last words of wise wisdom you want to give the people before I say end?
The only thing I'm going to say is what I normally say when Darren asks me this. Go read the Constitution and stand on it. That is superior law of the land.
Bingo. Tollandroll.com. Got you covered.